Lily Anderson stood in line at the small coffee shop, her medical bag slung over her shoulder after a long shift at the hospital. At 31, she worked as a nurse practitioner and had learned to find small moments of peace wherever she could. Today, that peace came in the form of a quiet coffee shop on a snowy afternoon, with warm copper lights creating a cozy atmosphere against the winter weather outside. The man in front of her wore military fatigues and stood staring at the menu board with a certain weariness that Lily recognized from years of caring for people. When he reached the counter and ordered a simple black coffee, Lily heard the barista tell him his card had been declined. The soldier apologized and said he must have forgotten to transfer funds, and he started to step aside. Without thinking, Lily stepped forward and told the barista to put his coffee on her tab. The soldier turned to look at her with surprise in his eyes, and Lily simply smiled and said it was the least she could do for someone in uniform. The man introduced himself as Connor Blake and thanked her genuinely. He asked if he could sit with her for a few minutes to properly express his gratitude, and Lily agreed because something about his quiet demeanor made her want to know his story. They found a table near the window where they could watch. The snow falling outside, Connor explained he had just returned from overseas deployment and was dealing with some banking issues while transitioning back to civilian life. Lily shared that she was a nurse practitioner and had just finished a 12-hour shift at the emergency room. They fell into easy conversation, and Lily found herself drawn to Connor's thoughtful way of speaking and the kindness in his eyes despite whatever hardships he had clearly endured. As they talked, Connor mentioned he was trying to reconnect with family he had not seen in years. He had enlisted right out of high school after a falling out with his father, and the years of military service had created a gap he was not sure how to bridge. Lily understood complicated family dynamics from her own experience, and she encouraged him to reach out because life was too short for unresolved relationships. Connor seemed to appreciate her perspective and admitted she was the first person who had shown him kindness since he had returned home. They exchanged phone numbers before parting ways, and Connor promised to pay her back for the coffee once his banking issues were resolved. Lily told him to pay it forward instead by doing something kind for someone else. Over the following weeks, they stayed in touch through text messages and occasional coffee meetings. Lily learned that Connor was struggling to find work despite his military experience, and she offered to help him network through contacts at the hospital. Connor eventually revealed more of his story during one of their coffee conversations. He explained that his father had been a successful businessman who had expected Connor to take over the family company. Connor had wanted to serve his country instead, and his father had seen it as a rejection. They had parted on bad terms, and Connor had not spoken to his father in over a decade. He had recently learned his father had passed away 6 months ago, and Connor had not even known to attend the funeral. Lily listened with compassion and told Connor that grief was complicated when relationships were unresolved. She suggested he might find peace by connecting with other family members if any existed. Connor admitted he had one surviving relative, an uncle named Robert who had managed his father's business affairs. Connor had been avoiding contact because he assumed his uncle would harbor the same resentment his father had held. A month after they first met, Connor called Lily and asked if she would accompany him to meet his uncle because he was nervous about facing family alone. Lily agreed without hesitation because she had come to care about Connor and wanted to support him through this difficult reconnection. They drove together to an office building downtown, and Connor's tension was visible in the set of his shoulders. Robert Blake turned out to be a kind man in his 60s who looked shocked and emotional when Connor walked into his office. He immediately embraced his nephew and said he had been trying to find him for months. Robert explained that Connor's father had regretted their estrangement deeply and had tried to locate Connor before he died. The business and the considerable family fortune had been left to Connor in the will, but the lawyers had been unable to find him because Connor had been deployed overseas without regular communication. Connor stood frozen as his uncle explained he was the heir to a multi-million-dollar estate and a successful technology company. Robert said Connor's father had followed his military career through old friends and had been proud despite never having the courage to reach out. Connor's eyes filled with tears as he realized he had lost the chance to reconcile with his father. But Robert assured him that his father had understood Connor's choice and had respected it even if he had struggled to express that while alive. Lily stood quietly to the side, watching Connor process this life-changing information. After the meeting concluded, Connor asked Lily to walk with him, and they found themselves back at the same coffee shop where they had first met. Connor told Lily he was overwhelmed by everything and did not know how to process suddenly having wealth and responsibility when he had been struggling to afford coffee just a month ago. Lily reminded him that the money did not change who he was at his core, and she had liked him just fine when he was a soldier whose card got declined. Connor smiled for the first time since the meeting and said that was exactly what he needed to hear. He told Lily that meeting her had changed his life in ways that went beyond the financial inheritance. Her simple act of kindness had reminded him that good people existed and that connection mattered more than money. Over the following months, Connor took over his father's company and worked to honor the legacy while making it his own. He established a foundation to help veterans transitioning to civilian life, remembering his own struggles and wanting to ease that path for others. He insisted Lily help him run the charitable arm of the foundation because she understood service and sacrifice better than anyone he knew. 6 months after buying him coffee, Lily and Connor returned to the same coffee shop for what had become their regular meeting spot. Connor handed Lily an envelope and said he had been waiting for the right moment to give it to her. Inside was a check for a substantial amount, and Connor explained it was not payment for the coffee, but rather his way of thanking her for seeing him as a person when he had felt invisible and lost. Lily tried to refuse the money, but Connor insisted she accept it and use it however she wanted. He said that her kindness had cost her $3, but had given him something priceless, which was hope and connection when he needed it most. Lily accepted the check with tears in her eyes and said she would donate it to the nursing scholarship fund at her hospital, helping others pursue careers in service. Connor told Lily he had been looking for the right words to say something for weeks, and she had just made it easier by being exactly who she was. He admitted he had fallen in love with her somewhere between that first cup of coffee and all the conversations that followed. He said he understood if she did not feel the same way, but he needed her to know that she had saved him in ways that had nothing to do with inheritance or money. Lily smiled and told Connor she had been waiting for him to say that because she had fallen for him too. They had built something genuine based on kindness, understanding, and mutual respect, and that foundation was worth more than any fortune. They kissed in the coffee shop where they had met, and the barista who had witnessed their first interaction smiled knowingly from behind the counter. They married a year later in a simple ceremony that honored both their values. Connor wore his military dress uniform, and Lily wore a modest dress that reflected her practical nature. They used their resources to help others while maintaining the grounded lifestyle that had brought them together. Their story became a reminder that small acts of kindness could change lives in ways impossible to predict. Years later, they would return to that coffee shop on the anniversary of the day they met. Connor would order black coffee, and Lily would insist on paying, and they would sit by the window watching whatever weather the day brought. They would remember how a declined card and a $3 gesture of kindness had led to a lifetime of love and partnership built on something far more valuable than wealth. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of unexpected connection. Leave a comment about a time when a small act of kindness led to something meaningful.